Okay, some slides before, the Virtual Language Observatory, the VLO, was mentioned, which is a central search application in the CLARIN context, which helps you to identify potentially relevant resources based on metadata. So information like who is the author, what is the license, what is the temporal coverage, what is the spatial coverage, and so on. However, there's a second search application in the CLARIN context, which allows you to search in linguistic resources, so actually in the content of those linguistic resources, and this is a Federated Content Search, or FCS in short. So the FCS is a search engine for using text patterns on distributed text resources. Distribute means here that those resources are not stored in a single place, so not in a single database, for example, but they remain at their hosting institutions at all of those CLARIN centers that are participating in the FCS infrastructure, which are obviously distributed all over Europe. So the FCS allows you to search in the actual content of linguistic resources, which are provided by CLARIN centers and some other institutions as well. So linguistic resources here means, for example, something like text corpora, like tree banks. But for the last 3 or 4 years, we're also connecting lexical resources, like, for example, dictionaries or lexical semantic wordnets to the FCS. And those are provided by the CLARIN infrastructure in a distributed manner. And the idea is that you still have one single interface where you can formulate your query and submit the query to the infrastructure, and it's then forwarded to all the participating CLARIN centers that are part of the FCS infrastructure. And they obviously will, in return, will provide the results they have on their local data stock. This alone wouldn't be particularly helpful, but FCS also allows you to get then an aggregated overview of all the results we got. So an overview of potentially relevant content, and always a path to access the content at the original context at the original provider. So the FCS is not meant to be a replacement for all of those fancy and powerful corpus query engines or treeback interfaces. It's just to give you a broad overview of the content that is available in the CLARIN infrastructure. And you will always have the option to go to the original context if you need more functionality, if you need a wider range of context, or if you need more information at the specific CLARIN center here. This depicts the general infrastructure of the Federated Content Search, and I won't go into detail here, but again, it shows you a bit the general structure of the FCS, especially this layered structure, where you have the local search engines, which are depicted at the bottom, which are at the different CLARIN centers. And on top of it, you have a thin technical layer of so-called FCS endpoints, which are kind of the translators between the local infrastructure at the centers and the overall infrastructure at CLARIN in the FCS, which is depicted at the upper part of the graphic. So the idea is that a user can use the FCS search portal, can formulate a query. This query is then distributed to the local search engines, which will create the results, and they again will be returned to the client and will be presented to the user at the central FCS search portal. So you might ask what resources are currently available. We heard there are 800,000 resources in the VLO right now. Unfortunately, all of them are already connected to the FCS, but we're working very hard to make that happen. Right now, we have more than 500 text corpora or tree banks in around 200 languages in the FCS available. For 3 years, we're working now on connecting lexical resources. So right now, we have around 45 dictionaries in 11 different languages. And there are in overall 24 institutions in CLARIN that are participating in this infrastructure. And they were working to increase all of those numbers. And we were quite successful over the last year, so we are quite confident that we can make that happen. So this ends the theoretic part, and I will now hand over to my colleague Erik for showing the FCS in action.
So this is currently a better new frontend. The FCS exists for over 10 years already. So there were multiple evolutions of the front end of the technology. And we are currently modernizing the front end. And if you visit the Better Content Search at clarin.eu, you will find this front end. It's similar to Google, so you can search for, let's say, Wien, press enter, and you get the list of resources. It's generic, it's simple because it's aggregating a lot of different structures, but provides it a more or less generic view. You have options, for example, to search by result count. So you see some resources provide over 400,000 hits, but each resource preloads or has a preview of 10 results. You can then also look at those results in more detail, switch, for example, to the known keyword and context view. So you see the term mean in the center and the left and the right sentence context. We have basic metadata, so who provides those results, a description of the resource, maybe also a link to the resource. For example, here we have links for each hit. So you can go to the institution and see the actual data and also use the special tools that they use for searching to maybe refine the search, do other stuff. So we always try to provide a backlink to the original data. And if you have the results, you can also try to load more results if you want. So let's see, we have loaded 30 results. Then we also offer the option to download those results. Maybe you want to use those 30 results, not also 400,000, to use your local NLP tools. We have also integrations with other CLARIN tools, for example, the Weblicht. But this is basically like Google. You can type something in, but this is not that interesting. We also provide some more information. For example, we have those 200 languages. Those are the content languages. And you might want to be, you might be interested in German resources, and then you can see we have 156 German resources. We have some resources in some other German dialects or some time epochs. And you can restrict your search from instead of all resources to a subset. You will also be able to select single resources by using also a list. You can group them by language or by institution. So you can say we don't want certain resources, so you can deselect them. You can also fuzzy filter them, so you will also see that we have some resources that are nested. So there's some structure in some resources. But those were single, simple, basic full text searches. Maybe you want to have some more complex searches, for example, for linguistic patterns. We have a single, simple example here where we say we want a phrase with 3 tokens. The first should be a word that starts with HER. Then we want to have a lemma that it's Arznei, and then we want to have a part of speech tag that's a verb. If we perform this search, this uses full text that has optional annotation layers. Then we also try to search through all resources, but the result set is obviously a bit more restricted because not all resources do support those annotation layers and also have hits in this language. But we also see that if you switch to the different data views, that we have for this German text archive, we have 7 results, and we have text with different annotation layers. So we have the plain text, we have a lemmatized version, we have part of speech, some normalization, and some surface forms. And those hits are also highlighted, so you will also see where your query matched. So Erlichsten matched with the first HER. This query language is quite complicated, so we also offer some visual query builders. So you can see if you want to change something, it's both reflected in the original query, but also in this components. So you can click together more complex queries. And you have different layers that are offered by various resources. So you see which resources have annotated for example, lemma or part of speech, or also phonetic layers, and create some more complex queries that might fit your research interest. But as the warning here shows, not all resources do support those layers. So this combination of layers restricts this result set quite heavily, because not everyone has phonetic annotation, and part of speech and lemma is also a bit more restricted. Yeah. If you want more help, we always provide a short description. This is helpful help item. So we describe the various query languages. We have this basic full text search. We have this more complex for linguistic pattern, that advanced search, and a more recent addition is the lexical search. And it describes a bit how to use this user interface. And for more detail, there's also a content search tutorial that we provide at CLARIN.eu. And if there are still some questions or some feedback, we have this contact email address where you can always write us or use this CLARIN forum to get more information.